let me show you a couple of scriptures here. I'm going to try to get this in, but in Second Timothy, 2 Timothy chapter 3 and verses 1 through 5, it in some of your Bibles, it titles it as the coming apostasy. And look at what he's talking about here. He says, this know also that in the last days, perilous times shall come. I'll read this in the Amplified as well, for the time's sake. He says, but understand this, that in the last days will come, set in perilous times of great stress and great trouble, hard to deal with and hard to bear. All right. For people will be lovers of self and utterly self-centered. They will be lovers of money. In other words, they'll trust money more than they trust God. And they will be aroused by inordinate, greedy desires for wealth, proud and arrogant, tempestuous, boasters. They will be abusive, blasphemous, scoffing, disobedient to parent, ungrateful, unholy, and profane. And if you'll just continue to read that, in verse 4, it says they will be lovers of sensual pleasures, and they will be lovers of themselves rather than lovers of God. And I wanted you to see that because, man, that sounds like where we are. And then in Philippians chapter 2, if you'll look at Philippians chapter 2, and I believe it's down there at verse 4 or verse 3. In Philippians 2:3, he says, let nothing, or I'll read an Amplified again. He says, do nothing for factional motives, through contentiousness, through strife, selfishness, or for unworthy ends, or promoted by conceit and empty arrogance. Instead, in the true spirit of humility, let each regard the other as better than and superior to himself, thinking more highly of one another than you do of yourself. Thinking highly of one another than you do with yourself. It also talks about, considers somebody else's interests more than you consider your own interests. Man, if you look at where the world is today, everybody is thinking about where they are. And self-interest, attention directly solely at yourself. That is not God's will. I want you to practice today, focusing on how can you be a blessing into somebody else's life. I like that, Vera. Be other-minded instead of self-minded. That is so good. Be very careful not to allow your self-centeredness to be the focus of your life.